Tell you something, being a man ain't no joke.
Toxic masculinity.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sex.
Hello, fellas, and welcome to A Christian Male Perspective. This is Andre again, coming back at you with another topic of how we as Christian men can move and operate in this modern world. Today's topic actually comes from one of my nephews. About 2 years ago, we were doing a manners and etiquette class with the group of kids that we mentor. We had the men dressed up in their nice suits. We had the girls dressed up in their nice dresses. We taught them different mannerisms and gentlemanly acts and behaviors and ladylike acts and behaviors. During that time, one of my nephews said that we look like classic men. And I really got there thinking about what does it mean to be a classic man? When we think of a traditional classic man, what do we think about? What are the characteristics that come off with that? And as I sat there and thought about it for about a couple of weeks, come up with 7 different characteristics that come to mind. First is being confident. Second is being a leader. Third is being assertive. Fourth is having self-control. 5 is being sober or being sober-minded. 6 is being intelligent. And 7 is being competitive. Now, these are not the only 7 characteristics that we as men should have, but I think if we focus on these 7 and develop and grow these, we will see that more and more of the growth that we need to really exhibit that idea of classic masculinity. All right, so today we're going to talk about and focus on the first letter in that is confidence. So what does it mean to be confident? According to Merriam-Webster, confidence is a faith or belief that you or someone can do something. Now, there's 2 important key factors in confidence. First, you gotta have faith. That is trust or belief that something good will come. Secondly, that faith or trust has to be in you, yourself, or someone or something. And those are 2 important distinctions to make. And we're going to talk about more about what it means to have self-confidence, which is not a bad thing, which is the next part of this. But we'll get more into details about that going forward. So, jumping right along, what can you have confidence in? You can have confidence or faith in yourself, number 1. Right? You can have, and we talk a lot about that in today's society, man, about having self-confidence. That's not a bad thing. Not at all. Not a bad thing. It is good to have some self-confidence. I think the problem is, as men, we tend to focus so much on ourselves and our abilities and in our abilities that we forget who the source of those abilities are. And that's where it gets in trouble, because we as men, we're flawed, we fail. And when we do fail, we don't have anything, may not have nothing to lean back on. And that's where the trouble, if you have confidence primarily in yourself, happens. The second thing you can have confidence in is things of the world. And by that, I mean, like, for example, the government, a government entity, or the stock market, right? Some people have great confidence and put their faith and trust in the stock market. But some people, they put their faith and trust, their confidence in their spouse. Now, my spouse will bring it through. I can trust my spouse to always bring it through. Or my kids, I can trust my kids to always, bring it through and come through. And it's not bad to put a little bit of confidence, because there's certain things that each one of these entities may be able to accomplish. But we should not put our whole confidence, our whole faith, our whole trust in these things. Why? Because all of these things are man-made. And as we said, men are flawed. We will fail from time to time. And that's where you can end up getting into trouble. Well, what else can you put your faith? You can't put your whole confidence in yourself, and you can't put your whole confidence in things of this world. Well, what's left? Well, the obvious answer is God. Now, I know that's a bit cliche and may seem a bit corny, but there's a lot of truth to that. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in many other men's life. When you, as a Christian male, put your faith and your trust in God, not in your work, not in your spouse, not in yourself, your own abilities, you end up putting yourself in the best possible situation. Now, that is something that is easy to say, but it can be difficult to do. I totally admit that. I admit that in my life, it is something difficult to do, but it is worth pursuing. It is worth going after to live such a life that your faith and your confidence in God. That leads me to a particular verse is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And different translations have say it slightly differently. But in effect it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways and he will direct your path. And I think that is really important about where we put our confidence, where we put our faith, and where we put our trust in. Confidence has three parts in my mind. The first two we talk about a lot in society, social media, in the world, but I think the third is really something, the glue that brings it together. Well, let's talk about those two most common things when people think of confidence, when someone has confidence in something. First, there is competence. And competence is the ability to do something, a demonstrated ability to do something. Steph Curry, I'm a huge basketball fan, and Steph Curry has competence at the free throw line. He's an above 90% free throw shooter over his career. He has great confidence at the free throw line. Now, Shaquille O'Neal, I love Shaquille O'Neal. I even modeled the way I played basketball after him, as you can probably imagine. He has a 52% free throw average over his career. Now, he doesn't have great competence in shooting free throws. You get him on, a foot from the basketball, get him in the paint. Yes, confidence he's going to be able to dunk the ball pretty much on wherever he's around. But free throw line, it's a different story. But confidence first has to have competence. Secondly, confidence has consistency over time. Again, I mentioned Steph Curry. He's a 90% above 90% free throw shooter over his career. He has demonstrated competence over a long period of time. And men, in our professional careers, we can see that happen a lot. God can bless us to be really good at something in your professional career. And he can bless you to do it and give you longevity in it over a long period of time. And that gives us confidence, the belief that yes, if we're put in a situation based on experience and where we've been before, that we can accomplish those things. Not the worst thing in the world at all. It's actually a very good thing to have. The problem that many of us men tend to run into with confidence is the third C, and that's character. Being competent is great. Being consistent with it, doing it over a extended period of time, it's a great thing. But without proper character to help keep you humble and keep you grounded, to keep things in perspective between you and the people that you're dealing with, that confidence over time, that confidence can develop into pride and arrogance. Now, this is something that I personally had to struggle with, especially in my professional career. I've done really well. God has truly blessed me in that. But I can never forget where it comes from so that I can remember that it's not about me. It's about God. And keeping that perspective is something that I work at on a day-to-day basis. So that character is really important because it really directs how you interact and react to people around you. And that really jumps into the next topic. What is the difference between godly confidence and pride and arrogance? A lot of times when I hear people talk about toxic masculinity, I think about the prideful, arrogant attitude. I think that's one of the aspects that they're talking about. And yes, that is prevalent, and that is something that we as men can easily fall into because most men are naturally competitive. Most men naturally want to climb the hierarchy, climb the ladder, if you will. That is something I think innate in us as men. And that's something that we have to be on guard for if we're not careful, that it could run amok and end up hurting people around us. Even if we're not married, hurting our friends and those people that God has put into our lives. Pride and arrogance focuses primarily on self. It focuses primarily on me. What can I get out of this? How can I be the focus here? How can I get things to be about me? And I think what godly confidence does says that, yes, I have accomplished this. You don't take those things away. You acknowledge that. But you also acknowledge the source of where those things come from. And I think from a Christian male perspective, that's what we have to remember. Secondly, pride and arrogance has this ability to overestimate your competence, or overestimate your abilities, but yet underestimate your limitations. And that is part of a recipe for disaster, because you can end up, man, getting yourselves in situations that you cannot pull yourself out of because you overestimated what you can do and didn't understand what your current limitations were. Give you an example. When I was in high school, during some of my peak when I was playing football, I could get up under the bench. And I remember getting under the bench and putting 3 plates on each side, roughly 315 pounds. And I was able to bench press that 5 times pretty consistently in the off season. Now, if I tried to do that, probably not so much. Now, if you give me 225, I understand within my current abilities, I can knock out 225 fairly easy. But if you put 315 on there, I'm going to struggle to get one. That's just frankly honest of where I'm at. But understanding my limitations and understanding my current abilities is important. Why? Because that gives you room to grow. A lot of times I see men that are prideful and arrogant. They are not willing to, accept their limitations. When men do not accept their limitations, they're not giving themselves room to grow. And that's very important because you will never arrive, so to speak. There's room to grow continually, no matter what it is that you're doing. And as Christian men, we have to understand, one, that God is our source, but two, we got to have a right view of our current abilities and our limitations so that we can improve and grow on them on a daily basis. Last but not least, many men that are arrogant and prideful, they're the bombastic guys, they need constant positive reinforcement. If you think about a classic Disney character, and the one that comes to mind the most for me is Gaston. And you guys remember that song, "No one does this like Gaston, no one does that like Gaston." And it's all about him, it's all about his abilities to do all the things he can do. He is probably the classic guy when you think of pride or arrogance, at least for me when it comes to mind. One of the classic guys when it comes to that. And if you're looking at, he kind of needs that constant validation from the people around him about how he's doing good and doing well. Well, the guys that are truly confident, they have this ability to know of what they can do, know their current limitations, and don't need that constant reinforcement or validation from other people. Particularly because they know who their source of their abilities is from, and that is God. So having that confidence, having that, and they call it quiet confidence. You hear people say that quiet confidence, not having to brag or to boast, but in knowing that God is giving you abilities, knowing where the source of it comes, knowing the extent and the limits of those abilities so that you can continually improve and grow in them is what separates someone who is godly in their confidence and someone who is prideful and arrogant. A couple of verses come to mind that kind of really set those distinctions up. The first one comes from Proverbs 16 and 18. And it says this: "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before the fall," or a haughty or prideful spirit before the fall. And that, to me, sets the example of, they say bigger they are, the harder they fall. Well, a lot of when guys who have overly large egos about themselves, that's usually the situation that they end up putting themselves in, because the confidence and the faith is in themselves, something that is human and again is flawed. The other verse comes to mind is from Philippians 4:13, and it says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Now, as Christian males, that is a great verse for us to have. I was keeping the mic. That's a great verse for us to have because it lets us know, one, what we can do. We can do all things. And it says, how can we do it? Through Christ, who gives us strength or is our source. So it helps us know what our limitations are. If we stick with Christ, it lets us know what our abilities are if we stick with Christ. It lets us know what our limitations are if we are without Christ. Very important things to keep in mind as we think about being a confident man. So, what are some things that we can take away to know how to be more confident in how we approach this world, more confident in how we approach people? Let's take a look at those now. All right, fellas, let's finish up today's episode with some practical tips on how do we increase our godly confidence. First, increase your faith and your trust in God. I know it may sound cliche, I know it may sound corny, but it's true. Once you increase your faith in God, then His promises will become more real to you and more relevant in your life. And this leads to tip number 2. Develop a vision or purpose for your life. Guys, once you have a vision or a purpose through prayer with God, you'll be able to make better decisions daily on what you should be doing. And those decisions will breed success, and that success will breed confidence. You'll be able to develop towards your goals, towards your vision, and that improvement, though it may seem marginal, may not seem huge, will help you develop your confidence over time. Number 3, presentation. Guys, I can't stress this enough. The way you look, they say if you dress better, you dress cleaner, you feel better about yourself. You dress up, and whatever dressing up in your mind is, you feel better. And there's a lot of truth to that. When you wake up and you don't put yourself together and you just kind of look anyway, you don't feel as good about yourself. You're not as confident. You don't carry your frame and carry yourself in the same way as when you know you're taking your time, you did whatever you need to do to your hair. For me, it's shaving. But whatever it is you need to do, and you put on clothes that you know look good on you and feels good on you, you're more confident. You stand up taller, your chest is broader, you're more assertive when you speak. Guys, presentation matters. And I will say this, as a black man, I understand the way social media, the way the mainstream media portrays black men is rarely ever in a positive light. You know, you may get a few, one or two celebrity, athlete or entertainer. They may highlight or spotlight something they do. But the average black man like me, no, you don't see very many positive messages out there in the mainstream media or out there on social media about that. So I am intentional about how I try to carry myself. I'm intentional when I talk to my young men about how they carry themselves. We don't want to perpetuate any negative stereotypes. Next, guys, show your work. Develop a competence. This takes work, right? To show your work. You got to work to show your work. Develop a competence, guys. Develop a skill. Know how to do something. And work and practice to be good at it over time. Developing that competence consistently. Remember those 2 C's, competence and consistency? Developing those over time will help increase your confidence. Last but not least, do not be afraid to take risks. Now, I will say calculated risks, and here's why. You don't want to go jump off a cliff without a parachute, right? You don't want to do that. But take risks, guys. Start that business. Go and try to learn a new skill. Change your profession, right? Go and ask that young lady out on a date. Take a calculated chance. Now, sometimes you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna succeed. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be every time you take a risk you're gonna hit it. But take those calculated risks, develop the competencies, and go and take the risk, and you will succeed at times. And those successes will help breed confidence over time. All right, guys, those are just some tips, some practical tips, things I've learned, things that people have taught me, and things I've seen out in the wild, if you will, in my years of living and experience. And I think that if you strive towards working towards godly confidence and not pride or arrogance, guys, you will see a notable change in your life. Again, this is Andre from a Christian male perspective. Stay sharp, fellas. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on social media at A Christian Male Perspective. Stay sharp, fellas.